en un lugar de La Mancha, de cuyo nombre no quiero acordarme.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good
Aujourd'hui,
fortune
maman est
must-
morte. Ou peut-être hier, je ne sais pas.
As audiobook providers expand into new markets, they confront a basic challenge: building audio catalogs with strong appeal worldwide. Welcome to The Spoken World. I'm Christopher Keneally. The Spoken World is sponsored by Penguin Random House Audio, the team behind some of the most talked about audiobooks in the industry. At the 2026 Parix Audio Day in Madrid, I asked 3 European publishers and an African-wide platform provider about their global development strategies. They spoke about business models and language investment, battles over rights and licensing, and the role of AI in production, marketing, and distribution. From Paris, Natalie Villena-Vega is head of editorial at Audiolib, the leading audiobook publisher in France that is a joint venture of Hachette Livre and Albin Michel. From Berlin, Julia Ballack is a business affairs specialist for Parcom Publishing, which launched in 2025. From Copenhagen, Lasse Korsemann Horner is the publishing director of Danish-based Saga Egmont and leads the company's audiobook expansion. My first question was for Amma Dadson, founder and CEO of AkuBooks Audio, Ghana's first publisher and a digital streaming platform for Black African audiobooks and the spoken word, founded in 2017. I thought I would go to Amma Dadson first because you've traveled the longest to get here for us, and so in appreciation of that, I want to open the conversation with you. You're drawing on Africa's long and very strong oral storytelling tradition to ensure that African stories are heard in African voices and languages and dialects. Briefly, tell us about that effort and why it's important to you personally.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be in Madrid. And yes, I've come all the way from Accra, which to me is a way symbolic of the distance that we have to close between African and the global audiobook world, also between African's oral tradition and the written word, and also between African stories that exist but need to be heard. So for us, our mission is simple. We believe that African voices need to be heard, and that means our African languages, dialects, accents, they need to be heard. I think when we look at the African audiobook market, it's not a simple one. It's 3 main overlapping markets. We have the African mass market listeners on the continent who want to hear the stories in their own languages and by narrators and voices they're familiar with. We have the African diaspora who are looking for stories that connect them with home and stories that bring back, memories of home. And then we have the international audience that is looking for new stories from new places. So it's not about just distribution, it's about how do we create a listening culture across those borders. Acquiring rights for African audio is a little bit complex. For many, the reality in the African publishing scene is that African audiobook rights were not part of the contracts. They are new. So we find that it's not just simply doing the legal paperwork. It's building trust, helping publishers to understand what role audio can play in the publishing ecosystem. And once we show them that quality productions and contracts that are fair, in many parts of Africa, a lot of publishers have had experiences with what they consider being exploited by international publishers. And so audio is another format that they're a little bit nervous about, but we're always talking about how do we build trust as well as developing. And then I think finally for us, AI is a big topic also. We use AI mainly in our production workflow, helping to do the translations and the processes. But for Africans, we are also working with 11 labs. I was very interested to hear George's presentation earlier. Many African languages, voices, tones, dialects are underrepresented in AI models. So there's a lot of work to be done to build African representation. It's very, very difficult to get an Afrocentric catalog from the voices that exist, but we are doing a lot of interesting things in trying to build those voices. But for us, narration is not just sound, and I think Barbara, alluded to that. Narration is about meaning as well.
Right. I want to pick up on that point, and the point, as you say, that Barbara Knabe was referring to, which is the relationship that people have with their audiobooks. And talk about the relationship that you have with your different audiences, because there must be a real challenge to satisfy all of them.
It is. Very different needs. The mass market on the continent often has sort of lower economic buying power, so the pricing sensitivity and whether they even have access to internet and being able to listen offline is a big thing. The African diaspora, as I said, is looking for voices and stories from home, often in their own languages. And then the international audience is now discovering Africa. And so we are looking at how do we position Africa as part of the big global audio catalog as well.
Yeah, briefly, can you tell us a couple of titles that have been successful across those different audiences?
I think there are many stories. There's a lovely story by a Cameroonian author called Mbolo Mbue. It's an immigration story and about a Cameroonian couple who move over to America and their life there. And it was actually produced in America with an American narrator of an immigrant, beautifully told. What's that story called? Behold the Dreamer. That's the name of that story. Wonderful, wonderful story. Stories for children with music and expressing the way we Africans tell stories, which is often very dramatic and often involves music. They translate also.
Sounds lovely. Yeah. Well, let's hop over to Paris and Natalie Viana Vega. Welcome again. And Ama has talked about how she is using AI tools to develop African voices and to expand her catalog of African voices. In France at Audiolib, what kind of work are you using, or in what ways are you using AI tools?
Hi, Christopher. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Yes, we do use IA in our production as a support.
And IA, we should say, en français, c'est intelligence. So IA, AI, yes.
In French.
You say IA, I say AI.
Exactly. So we do use it in production as a support tool. We use it in studios. In studios, it is very helpful. It helps us to go faster, to be more efficient, to make some economies, to produce more. We use it for quality control, for real-time verification, for certain mismatched words, too long silences, these kind of things, repetitive mistakes. We also do use it to improve our metadata. We also use it to find keywords, things like that. But all of the creative work, which is editorial choices, which are editorial choices, the narration, the castings, the pre-production work, and even the marketing campaigns are all human-made. And we are proud to do that, as we want to highlight this kind of work, premium work for our books, that gives each book a particular quality and a particular nature. We reunited in the National Union of Publishers in France, SNE, le Syndicat National des Éditeurs, several publishers. We decided to create a label. This label is used now in our covers, and we call the label human interpretation, not narration, but interpretation. This is the way we use to make the readers and the future readers know what they are choosing to read.
Was it very difficult for everyone to come together and decide on that? I mean, what was the process? What was the reason behind it? We heard last year about the UK and the US coming up with various guidelines around transparency. Was transparency the concern that people had?
Yes, totally. We are transparent. We are working together with the unions of readers too, narrators, and we always explain what we are going to do. We work in agreements also in order to be clear about this.
All right, and so obviously you're quite busy in France with the French marketplace, but talk about your global ambitions. What's happening for Audiolib on the global scale?
Well, Hachette is an international group, as we all know. There is Hachette US, Hachette UK, and Hachette also in Spain with the group of Anaya. But we are based in France, and in France we produce French-speaking books for the French-speaking market. So the French-speaking market is not only in our country, but overseas. We have Belgium, Switzerland, Quebec, and we distribute everywhere. That said, our main sales are made in France. It revolves around 90%. What is happening right now in France is that we are watching this market growing. The growth is quite spectacular. I would say that we are a teenager market right now, growing fast. It revolves around 15% to 20%, and we are happy with that. We don't know when we'll stop, but by now we are working on that. In a more concrete way, our production also is growing. Last year we have produced 280 books, and the next year we will produce 350, so you can see concretely how we also grow. And there is another specificity of the French market, or French-speaking market, is that we have two models coexisting. We have the token model that we have already used to know, and we have also the time credit one. The time credit one appeared 3 years ago, and 2 years ago there was a major actor who came to the market, Spotify, with their own public, and we were really curious to know what would happen. And we have discovered 2 years later that there is a whole new population of readers with another kind of behavior. We have seen these readers read shorter stories. They don't consider podcasts as a competition anymore. That was the case before. They are more female readers, a wider range of age. And that's a surprise, and we are really happy of this spectacular growth.
The Spoken World returns with more from Parix Audio Day in Madrid in a moment. The Spoken World is sponsored by Penguin Random House Audio, the team behind some of the most talked about audiobooks in the industry. From standout fiction to culture-shaping nonfiction, they collaborate with top authors and world-class narrators to create audio that connects deeply with listeners and brings powerful stories to life. To meet the award-winning team and learn how to partner with them, visit penguinrandomhouseaudio.com. The Spoken World returns now to a Parix Audio Day panel discussion on creating a global audio catalog. German audiobook publisher Parix launched just a year ago. Julia Ballack told me about the advantages and the challenges for a startup.
So there are many pros and cons to be a startup, I would say. And let's start with our ambitions. We are a boutique publishing house who focus on a selected group of high-quality authors, among them also best-selling authors such as Sebastian Fitzek and Michael Ende. And at the same time, we want to offer a wide range of genre. We have now romantasy, fiction, fantasy for all ages, also thrillers and non-fiction part. And to expand globally, our ambition is to become a distinctive partner on the global market and to find the best local partners there to realize our dream to distribute the multilingual audiobooks.
Right. But how does being a startup affect the way you work? Is there a new mentality? In Silicon Valley, they say, move fast and break things. Are you trying to do that?
So first the positive points are you're small, you can act quickly, and you have a small line to the authors. For example, you can react on global events like we did 1 year ago, or my colleagues did 1 year ago. When they started in April, and the Pope Francis suddenly died, they realized and published in 2 days a podcast with a Vatican specialist, Andreas English, who has been working or writing about the Vatican and has a very close connection to the Vatican since 30 years, and interviewed. The second host was Heike Kleen, a journalist and sex columnist at The Spiegel, and this has become a big success. And we had this daily podcast, for example, without bureaucratic boundaries. And this is, for example, a good example how we could react very quickly on this.
But it's interesting to me that while startups tend to leverage technology any way they can, Parkham Publishing has a special approach to AI. Tell us about that.
So speaking about this podcast, for example, so generally speaking, we are not against AI, but in terms of narrating audiobooks and audio dramas, we strongly believe that the human voice is the most important medium we have to deliver for our audience. However, talking about this podcast, we had the experience. We really wanted to have a bigger reach, to reach the audience in Spanish and in English, and this was an example of try and error of a startup company, and unfortunately it didn't work in the end. It didn't match our quality expectations. Suddenly Andreas English sounded Indian, and Heike Kleen spoke in a Scottish accent, so it didn't match. So, and we couldn't realize this in such a short time because it had to be up to date during the conclave, and now we are working on it. In this aspect, we are not against AI.
Well, Lasse Kotzmann-Horner with Saga Egmont in Copenhagen, that's an experience that I think you can relate to. We were chatting earlier about the use of AI, and Natalie has already spoken how Audiolib is using AI to assist with data and metadata and so forth. And you trust AI in that area of your business, but not in other parts. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, just as you do, we use AI to make quality assurances, to prepare for narrations, because it can scan and see, okay, this might be a strange word, practice the pronunciation on that word. But getting the AI to produce an audio is simply too tiresome and expensive a task right now, because you need to edit the AI narration so much and so long that it is cheaper to get a person into the studio and narrate it. And then we still don't know what it is that the users really want. Because what the voice also does, it's not only transporting information from the book, it's also transporting feelings. And I guess this is where the reader really connects with the audio. That's the emotional part. I don't know if the machine can translate that yet, and even if it can so, it kind of feels like a real fake experience, but let's see.
Well, we've heard about artificial intelligence. You're talking about emotional intelligence. That's interesting. But the AI voice creation, it hallucinates in a similar way to hallucination in text.
Yeah, and that's also, I think we also heard the example early on from 2016. You have a text and you have some various names. Sometimes they're pronounced in French and then in Icelandic. And then, it jumps all over and you never really know what to check. So we are doing our tests. We also have released full AI narrated audiobooks for a test to see how the consumers, how the readers are reacting to these AI publications.
Okay, and Saga Egmont is a digital-first publisher. You've got a strong audiobook platform across many markets in Europe. Talk about what unites your efforts to do business in the Nordic countries, in France, in Spain, and Germany, and what's so special about Polish?
Well, what unites is quite simple and has already been said here. It is producing local content from local talent with local narration talent. So that is basically quite simple. And then, of course, distributing it all over. What's special about the Polish is that there's such a big part of the Polish population that is living abroad. So it's actually funny to see that a big part of our Polish sales happen in the US and in the UK. So we have this mantra of all titles out everywhere, always, and this is the only way that we really reach everyone globally. And so if you publish a Polish title, you'll sell it in the US, you'll sell it everywhere.
Wonderful. Well, I want to ask Alma Datsun one last point. It hasn't come up yet, I think, in various presentations about accessibility and how audiobooks in various markets, but this would be especially true in Africa, is a question of accessibility. And you have a personal piece of that accessibility story to share. Can you tell us that?
Yes. My venture actually into audiobooks is a personal story. My mother is a writer, and she lost her sight about 20 years ago. And so audiobooks became her life and lifeline to books. And it was in, getting her those books and, over the years, the development in technology. It was books on tape, then, of course, DVD, then it was iPods and all of that, Walkmans and all that. Now we have streaming audio at home. It was finding out that African audiobooks were not part of the catalog, and that's actually how I got into the business. And so for me, I think it's not just a format. Audio is not just a format. It's about what stories get heard, and in what languages. And so I think it's really, really important that audio now becomes a medium that people can hear stories, maybe for the first time in their own languages. People with disabilities, but also illiterate people who may not be able to read and write in English or one language.
It's important, the access to stories, but in the African context and surely elsewhere in the world, it's an access to education, to professional development, access of all kinds.
Absolutely, yes.
That's all for now. Our producer is Jeremy Brisky of Burst Marketing. Rob Simon is our executive producer. With support from Penguin Random House Audio, the Spoken World podcast covers the latest news in audiobook publishing and features exclusive interviews with audiobook industry leaders, analysts, and innovators. Learn more at spokenworld.media and subscribe on all major podcasting and streaming platforms. I'm Christopher Keneally. Join me again soon on The Spoken World.